Hello, and thank you for joining us. My name is Jim Kidwell, and I'd like to welcome you to the Dante Director webcast. We're going to have a good presentation today, and I hope that you'll have a good hour to spend with us today. If you have any questions, please enter them into the Q&A panel on our Zoom platform here. Hopefully you're all aware of that. If you go up to the top and click the Q&A button, you should be able to enter questions here, and we will be answering those at the end of the webcast. But as you think of questions, please go ahead and enter them into the chat window, into the Q&A panel, and we will be answering those at the end. We'll stay on as long as we possibly can and answer as many questions because we want to be able to get any questions, concerns, configuration questions, things like that out of the way so you guys can have a successful implementation of Dante Director if you so choose to. We also will be offering a trial of Dante Director. Dante Director is available as a 30-day trial, so you can do that at any point in time. You can even sign up during the webcast if you'd like, but we invite you to do that as well. So very quickly to introduce your players here, my name is Jim Kidwell. I am the Principal Product Marketing Manager here at Audinate, and I've been here for about a year, but I've been doing software for a couple of decades, and luckily I'm responsible for all the software here at Audinate, so any of the management software is what I cover. And I'm here with an expert who's been around Audinate for a long time. You may have seen his name before, my colleague Lawrence Crew. Lawrence, would you like to introduce yourself and give us a little background?
Sure, yeah, thanks, Jim. Yeah, I've been at Audinate for just about 5 years now, and I'm a product manager and I also look after our controller management software, and I've been very excited to bring Dante Director to market, which we're talking about today.
All right, great. Thank you, Lawrence. So to kick things off, many people are probably aware of, using Dante to connect devices together, and how those devices are connected is typically in an unmanaged state. And to kick things off, we kind of wanted to describe the differences between an unmanaged and a managed state. Lawrence, would you take us through that, please?
Yeah, sure. Just in familiar terms. So if you're just running your network using Dante Controller, then typically that's going to be an unmanaged network. And but we've had our management product, Dante Domain Manager, on the market for some time now. And if you enroll your devices into Dante Domain Manager, then it's in what we might call a managed state. There's a bit of a difference in the way things work in these two different states. So in the unmanaged world, basically all of the configuration is kept in the devices themselves. You might notice if you take away Dante Controller, then things still work. And when you plug it back in again, or plug any Dante Controller back in, then it'll go and find everything and tell you what's going on. So really, it's a very device-orientated protocol. And this is really clever. It's really great in situations where, particularly in kind of live situations where you want to put things together really quickly and have them up and running. And it just has a few limitations. There's no sort of central point of control, and you don't get any logging really of what's going on, especially after you close Dante Controller. The managed version of this is that you introduce an extra manager in the middle of things, and the devices are exclusively connected to that. And what that means is that it gives you a kind of single point of convergence for control. So you can add layers of authentication and say, who's doing what, logging, who's done what, or what's happened in the system. And it's sort of constantly monitoring that system and making sure that things are kept in a good state. So that's the kind of basic difference. In both cases, the actual media, the audio, video, and clocking flows around between the devices themselves, so that doesn't flow through the manager. It's just there to make sure that it keeps the configuration figured out.
Yeah, I think that's key. The key last point I think we need to hit on again is that the signals themselves, the actual audio or video signals, don't actually go to the manager itself. It's just the control data. So it's making sure that all of the signal routings are happening appropriately and going to the right places, and could be updated from that remote control application. So we're here obviously to talk about a new product. Dante Director, which is our SaaS platform for managing devices. So some of you may have heard of Dante Domain Manager. This is very similar to Dante Domain Manager, but it is a SaaS service, and it is designed to have much easier access to be able to get into using the actual device manager itself, and make it easier for people who may not be able to run a hypervisor or set things up to get up and running quickly. Lawrence, do you want to talk us through a little bit about Dante Director?
That's a pretty good introduction, Jim. We just wanted to bring the benefits of Managed Dante and what you might get from Dante Domain Manager, but to a much broader audience. So yeah, you can be up and running with Dante Director in a matter of minutes. It's very, very straightforward. It is in the cloud, so we manage the whole application for you. It means the devices need to connect to that via the internet, but then you get all those benefits of having a lot less to do in terms of running that application. Also, being in the cloud, it naturally gives you remote management. It's one of the kind of more exciting features about Dante Director, is it just allows you to manage your Dante devices from anywhere.
All right, let's go into maybe a few benefits here. I know we'll just a quick note, we will be doing a full demo of Dante Director in a minute. But we just kind of wanted to talk over the background and benefits of Dante Director. One of the key ones being remote management. Lawrence, could you tell us a little bit more about remote management and the other benefits of Director?
Yeah, sure. And as I mentioned, the fact that this is in the cloud, it means that the control and monitoring of the devices do go up to the cloud and then back down again. This means that you can not only access it through Dante Director itself, and so it's got this kind of fairly nice, clean, simple web interface. Works even on a mobile phone, so you can do a checking of status, even some basic routing, even on a mobile, which is pretty cool. Or of course, you can launch Dante Controller and you get all of the features of Dante Controller except from anywhere, because it connects and authenticates through Dante Director and then back to your site. So for people who are managing remote sites or managing multiple sites, this is a kind of a really handy feature. User access control and security is an increasing concern for a lot of our customers, and particularly where you're dealing with voice systems. And just really preventing people not only from making kind of like changing things in a malicious way, but just making kind of dumb mistakes. A principle of access control is just don't give access to things that people don't need to touch. So it just eliminates the whole kind of class of errors. And also you can go back through the logs and see who's changed what, and so you can sort of find out what has changed and why, rather than just finding that there's some configuration change.
I think that one of the changes in between unmanaged and managed networks is actually key there, because when you're managing your network, you actually do add that layer of protection, because in an unmanaged state, anybody can plug a computer into your network and use Dante Controller to do anything, which can be kind of disastrous in certain situations.
Yeah, look, if you imagine a situation where you're running a kind of like a live gig, and you run your own cables and everything, and it's like there's a person there at the desk, and it's security by the fact that like no one's allowed to touch anything. But then you take that into like a university situation where you've got network ports all over the place, and students running around, and you don't want people just plugging in and being able to access any of your configuration. So that's where that kind of user access control comes into its own.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And the API, we're going to talk about this quite a bit later on, and with the demo as well. But excited to offer this. So it offers a really convenient way, because this is a kind of single point of integration. You can just hit this fairly simple API, web-based API, and have full monitoring and control of your Dante installation. So the rule of thumb, anything that you see in Dante Director is in the API, because Dante Director is built on that API. So.
Yeah, and one of the cool things about Dante Director that I don't think I've seen in a lot of other applications is using the managed API is not rocket science here. We've done some integrations with free applications, so you don't have to pay a lot for a software developer to use the API. You can use it yourself, and I'm a non-expert. I'm not a programmer, and I can use it. So I'll show it to you in just a little bit. So I'm excited about that. All right, let's talk a little bit about the Dante management ecosystem. A lot of people think of the Dante controller as being the central piece of the Dante platform, which is true, and it is a management application. But there are differences between that and the other applications that we offer. Lawrence, could you take us into this a little bit and tell us a little bit about the differences?
Yeah, the first thing you might notice is that this is not the Dante controller that you know and you're used to. Just a little bit of a kind of like early sneak preview here. We're bringing out a rebranded kind of a zhushed up version of Dante controller later in the year. We've shown this at a couple of trade shows, and it's getting quite a lot of excitement. It'll have a light and dark mode, but I think anyone who's here is probably familiar with Dante controller. It's a pretty essential tool. Dante Director we've just talked about, and Dante Domain Manager is our a kind of enterprise grade on-premise hosted server application for managing similar sorts of things, user access control, scalability, breaking the network down into small chunks, routing across subnets. You can do all of those things in Dante Domain Manager. But Director and Dante Domain Manager do work hand in hand with Controller. So once again, if you're in this managed environment, you can either manage things within, say, Dante Director, or you can just launch Dante Controller really easily in a way that it'll just route through Dante Director and give you that full functionality remotely.
Okay, great. So one of the key features of Dante Director that we've talked about is the remote management capabilities and avoiding surprises with the proactive supervision. One of the things that I'd like to tell a quick story before I hand it off to you, Lawrence, but I was talking with a guy over at, I think it was at Infocom, and he was telling me that he was a service provider for multiple different churches, and was having to manage all of the different churches, like 5 different churches. And so you can imagine that he wanted to make sure that everything was up and running all the time. And so he would check his Dante Director account and check across all of the different sites to make sure that everything was running even on the day of. Because when he's at one site and all of the services are running at the same time, he can't be at all of them at the same time. So he was always doing proactive checking to make sure that, hey, that thing didn't get unplugged, or somebody didn't hit the button where they shouldn't have hit the button, which is usually happens in places that have inexperienced users. Lawrence, do you
Yeah.
have more practice?
The well-intentioned volunteer or the whoever, or just
Exactly.
the cleaner. And this is really what it's all about, isn't it? It's about making sure that we provide a reliable service to our users, our listeners, and our viewers. And so the last thing that you want as a professional is like a last minute emergency call when things are already going bad, and especially if you've got to hop in the van and drive across town at great speed. So firstly, this is about making sure that you can access things in advance without having to go to the site. And then when things do go wrong, you can do some troubleshooting. You may not be able to solve everything remotely, but there's a lot you can do. You can check and fix routing, check and fix clocking, look at the latency, what have you, and reboot devices. All those things you can do remotely. And then if you are having to go to site, then you get early warning and you got a bit more idea of what's going on before you get there. So that's really what this is all about, I think.
I think that's a great description. So one of the things that a lot of people mention when they talk about SaaS services, and a lot of I saw a question in the Q&A here about people asking what exactly is SaaS. So SaaS means software as a service. So typically this means that it's software running up in the cloud, either in AWS or Google or Azure or any of the other cloud services out there. So Dante Director is running in one of the cloud services, and it is provided from the cloud. So one of the things that a lot of people bring up when they say, I want to use a SaaS service, but I have questions. And actually, I have a poll that I want to launch here, and I'm going to ask you guys what you think. So I want to know if you guys have internet access to your Dante networks, because internet access is required to use a SaaS service. So we want to best understand where you are, where your security posture is, how you do this. I know that a lot of people in the AV industry have stated that it's kind of more common practice to have an air gapped or standalone network. They keep it from the rest of their traffic to for a variety of reasons. One is a perceived level of security, as well as keeping the traffic that's running on the AV network away from all of the other traffic. Say if you're in a corporate environment, you don't have email traffic and things like that running over the same network. So adopting a SaaS service can be something that you may think is a little more challenging. One of the things that we're trying to do is trying to help people understand how you can actually implement a SaaS service like Dante Director and do it in a safe way that is also more secure than it would be if you had not implemented a SaaS service or a management service. All right, so looks like I'm gonna end the poll here, and then I'm going to share the results. So one of the things that you'll note here is that a lot of people are using air-gapped or standalone networks, as this isn't a surprise to us. And so that's why we've actually written this Securing Dante Networks for Use with SaaS Tools white paper. What this white paper includes is detailed instructions for how to open up specific ports in the firewall just to your Dante AV network. Doesn't mean that you have to converge your networks. We know that the whole topic of conversion can be a bit of a hot topic because, you know, of that one issue of making sure that your traffic isn't impeded by other types of things. Like, say you don't want to have somebody open up Netflix and start streaming content in your corporate network, and all of a sudden your conference rooms all go down because there's not enough bandwidth for everything. So you can still have a separate AV network. You would just need to connect it to the internet. And the chart that you see here on the right is a chart that describes how things work. And Lawrence, could you give us a little bit of detail about what all of this means and how this applies to a SaaS service and how it works?
Yeah, sure. Look, this looks a little complex at a glance, and I think what we're trying to convey here is that all the information that you need is in the book. But I will say that that really from a device perspective, the bare minimum, this is showing the kind of worst case scenario, which is when you are discovering devices for the first time and then enrolling them in Dante Director, which is the once-off activity. Once the devices are connected to Dante Director, they really only need this one port, which is the port 8000. And so as long as that port is open to the internet, then you're good to go. And so it can be quite a restricted security stance that you take on that network. And it depends a little bit. If you get into complicated situations with proxies and things, it's like, look, there might be some scenarios which are going to cause trouble, but we find in most cases this is not a problem at all, as long as the right information is made available. So yeah, I guess it's just a trade-off between, there are some situations where things absolutely have to be air-gapped, very sensitive situations, government situations. My favorite story is, someone trying to run a Dante network on a submarine, and they're like, yeah, we're not going to use a cloud service. We're like, fair enough. Um, but in many cases, especially if you're doing kind of, unified communications, for example, you're going to need the internet anyway in order to have any kind of meaningful service there. So it's not usually seen as being too much of a constraint. What I will say and reiterate once again is that the actual media is running in the local network. If the internet is down, then things will still work. The media will still flow. You can't change things necessarily, but in terms of in terms of an emergency outage situation, it's not going to stop your audio or video from flowing. Yeah.
Yeah. One other thing that I did want to point out is that that opening ports in a firewall doesn't have to necessarily be scary. Lawrence, you did mention that there's just the one TCP 443 port that is required to connect to Dante Director, and that's the port that all of the director traffic, as well as any traffic that's coming from Dante Controller, happens remotely. One of the cool things that you can do with a lot of firewalls is restrict traffic to specific sources. So if you are utilizing Dante Director and you've already set up your network and everything, and you want to clamp everything down to just port 443, you can just say it's port 443 and it's only coming from the Dante Director source. So any and all control data would just come directly from there, and that would be it. So it's just Director, and you can ensure that everything else is safe and secure. So that is one strategy. All of this is described in the white paper. I highly recommend that you download it from our site and check it out. All right, next topic. Because this is the Dante management ecosystem, we have provided what we referred to earlier is the Dante managed API. It is a GraphQL API. I did get a question earlier as to whether it was REST or SOAP or GraphQL. It is GraphQL, but it's an API that has been exposed for use, and there's full documentation on our website that you can download and use. This is the same API that is utilized for Dante Director and Dante Domain Manager, so you are able to use it to connect to either. We have implemented an implementation with Bitfocus Companion, which is a free third-party tool that you can utilize to program button interfaces for things like the Stream Deck. You'll see a picture of one here. I will show you a demonstration of a virtualized Stream Deck here using Bitfocus Companion in just a moment, just to show you that a guy who's the marketing guy can actually figure this out and utilize this. I'm not a programmer. But we also have pre-built connections to the Crestron and AMX products. And you can download and utilize those as well. So if you are utilizing these, you can obviously give access to those inexperienced users. If you say, put this into a university classroom and you have your professor who is notoriously not very tech savvy, he can come up and push a button and transfer audio and video sources utilizing the API, and he doesn't even know that he's doing that. He's just pushing buttons on a Stream Deck. And you can do multiple different channel switches all at the same time. So it's pretty cool. You can also do some pretty neat things with monitoring. Lawrence, would you like to take us through some of the monitoring things that we've done with AVI SPL and other opportunities?
Yeah, so look, the API is obviously open for any third-party platforms to integrate with, and we're seeing a lot of interest from a platform perspective. One integration covers 5,000 plus different Dante devices potentially. So AVI SPL has been pretty enthusiastic about getting this connector into their product. Symphony is a fantastic product that does all manner of different monitoring, and now it brings rich Dante information about those devices, including status and clocking, etc., into Symphony alongside the other data that you can see in that platform. And there's a few other platforms that we're working with as well. So watch this space. You should see a few other integrations coming up.
Yeah, I'm just took a quick check at the Q&A, and a lot of people are asking about QSYS and Extron. Do we know if there are any existing integrations with QSYS and Extron, or is it fairly easy?
I've known of a couple of different people working on unofficial QSYS connectors. I don't know if they've made those available. I think that there's like a way for them to share those in the QSYS kind of developer network. But look, it is a fairly high priority for us. So we'll be looking at how we can achieve that in a way that's accessible to people. QSYS in particular, and Extron, I guess it's a pretty popular platform, so we should be looking at that as well.
All right. So we are at the wonderful point to where we can do a demo. So I'm going to go ahead and exit the slideshow here, and I will show my screen. Okay. Here we go. So this is Dante Director. To log into Dante Director, it's pretty easy. You just go to director.dante.cloud and then you log into your account. When you log into your account, you'll be able to have access to multiple different sites. So for example, here I have multiple different accounts actually. And if you have if you're like in an MSP situation where you have multiple different people or multiple different accounts that you're actually managing, you can give yourself access to multiple different accounts and keep those sequestered from anybody else who may be monitoring things at that account itself. So in the example where I had a church, that I'm an MSP that manages multiple different churches, all of the different churches will have their own account here. In this account here, this is a demo that we've set up. I'm sitting here in Portland, Oregon, and the demo itself is sitting in Cambridge in the UK. So this is on the other side of the planet. I'm connecting to Dante Director, which is hosted here in the United States, but it's connecting to devices that are sitting in Cambridge in the UK. This is set up to be an example that is like a university. We have multiple different sites within the actual demo account itself. So we've got an auditorium, a classroom, a public announce system. These are all virtual devices. They're running on a server. So we purposely overloaded it. So we have some issues with some different devices. So when you click into the different sites, you can see what's going on here. Oh, wow, the clock is drifting too much with these one particular devices here. So it'll give you a quick overview of the actual status of that site itself. I'm going to go into the auditorium, and you'll see at the auditorium, the status itself is looking pretty good at an overview level. Everything looks fine. If you'd like to, you can click into the devices, and you can see the devices on both a tile level as well as a list level, and you can get a variety of different information very quickly. You can understand if the firmware is up to date, if things are connected. Over here, you'll see that the connectivity, clocking, subscription status, latency. If you click into one of the devices itself, you'll see that there's a lot of different information that you get within this page. So you can see the network interface, the clock synchronization, any recent activity. All of this is handled within the log itself. You can even remotely reboot the device. We all know how sometimes just turning it on and turning it off again actually makes it work again. So you can even remotely reboot devices that support that. Not all devices have that built in, but a lot of them do. So you can go ahead and click that to reboot devices. We've also built some of the Dante controller functionality into Dante Director as well. So you can set up the subscription status of different channels just by clicking edit, and you can say, oh, okay, I want the channel to come from here, and you could subscribe it if you'd like to. So this can all be managed here at this level. You can also manage the transmit channels too, anything that's coming from here to other sources. I will also open up Dante Controller here, but I wanted to take you on a tour of a couple of other features too. So we'll go into Controller in a second. But you could also manage what I indicated earlier. You can set up different users of your site. You can set up restricted users. So you can say with this user, I want them only to have access to one particular site. So you can even further granulate your setup here, ensuring that only the right people have access to the particular items within your environment. So if you have multiple different techs at a larger university, you can do that. We have an overview of clocking here too. You can set up multi-subdomain routing of devices. So frequently, if you're experienced with Dante, you'll know that you can only send signals within that subdomain from one device to another, and the signals are actually stopped at the subdomain level. But with Dante Director, like if you're experienced with Dante Domain Manager, you can actually pass signals across that subdomain boundary using Dante Director. So that can be auto-configured, or you can set up the unicast or multicast clocking directly within this page itself. And then we've also got a full event log that tells you what exactly is going on, and you can examine all of the different statuses and what has been happening within your site itself within the event log. Now, if I go back to the device pane here, and I click into this device, say there's something wrong here, and I want to actually look at this device in a little more detail. I can click Open Dante Controller. It will automatically open Dante Controller, take me to that site itself, and open everything up for me. So this is my mixer. I can open up my mixer. And I have a couple of different transmitters here, and then my mixer is my receiver. You'll note that in Dante Controller, and I'm using the old Dante Controller, not the fancy new one that's yet to come out. But if you come up to the top here, this is typically where the unmanaged will be, the unmanaged state. So if you're using Dante Director, and if you've never used a manager for your Dante devices, you'll always have been using it in an unmanaged state. So when you add devices to a managed group, a site, or a domain, they will automatically happen. They'll come together within this list here. So they may look like they're disappearing from Dante Controller, but they're not disappearing. They're actually showing up in the appropriate location. So this makes it a lot easier to filter things down to just the devices within that particular site or domain. So now when I'm set up in here, I can actually manually do routing if I want to. I can click on this and set a route using Dante Controller with my site. And remember, all of my devices are actually all the way over on the other side of the planet in Cambridge. So I can do all this manually. I can click all the buttons myself, but I don't really want to do that. What I'd like to do is I'm going to utilize BitFocus Companion to do that. So I have configured a virtual device here. This is a virtual setup of buttons that enables me to do multiple channel switches at one time. So you may have seen this before if you're familiar with BitFocus Companion. This is basically an emulation of a Stream Deck. So I've programmed multiple different channel switches into each of these buttons. So if I click this button here, what it'll do is it automatically Oh, see, now I had the wrong one open. It automatically creates all of these subscriptions between my instance of DVS and the mixer. So that's basically sending music from DVS to my mixer, say, for example, in the auditorium itself. So now we've got our background music playing on all of the right channels, and the music's everywhere as intended. Now, what happens when we get to a place where we're like, hey, you know what, we want to switch over and we want to have all of the sources coming from the stage box rather than DVS. We want to have the band actually be able to perform and be heard by the right people. Well, now I could go in and click all of the different channel subscriptions here myself, but instead of doing that, I programmed it so I have a button to do so. So on my Stream Deck or my virtual Stream Deck here, I click the stage box button, and then it automatically switches all of those channels. Now this is pretty cool and it's pretty fast. But you have to also remember, I'm in Portland, Oregon, and this is changing everything over in Cambridge. So if you are doing this on site, you know, everything should be just fine. Everything should be pretty quick and clean and crisp, going back and forth. So it's a lot faster than manually clicking all of the different buttons here. Now, I can also even program a button to clear all of my subscriptions too if I want to. So I've done all of these different things, and it's just that easy to subscribe, change subscriptions with a button. So pretty neat. So yeah, so that is a good place to sit at. And one of the things I wanted to talk about, let's see if I can, hold on. There we go. Oh, there's my GUI. Okay. So now I wanted to show you the GUI for how this works. It's pretty easy to set things up. So here are my buttons. Basically, all you need to do is say, okay, this is my DVS button. And then once you've added your API connection, so this is my API host and my key, I can show you how you can get those. And then you just basically map and say, okay, what are my my transmitters and what are my receivers? So everything, you know, this is my button for DVS. This is my transmitter. This is my receiver. And you'll see that with this one button push, I've got multiple different channel subscription changes. And you can put together as many as you need for every single button to make whatever types of configurations you might need. And obviously with Stream Decks and other things like that, you have lots of different buttons that you can program, and you can do all of this through BitFocus Companion. So BitFocus Companion is a free application that you can get online. It's an open source. So you can program lots of different things. And so the connector is very easy to add a new connection. You just click and search for Audinate, and you get Audinate Dante, and then you just add it. So yeah, I just need to set an API key, and setting an API key is not difficult. Basically, you come over to your server details, click API keys, and then just click add a key, and then you'll get a new key. So it's really easy to do. This is not a rocket science kind of thing, but it's pretty easy to create extensions. All right, Lawrence, do you think I've hit on the key features of Dante Director? Is there anything that I else that I should show that I haven't shown?
No, I don't think so. I mean, there's one thing maybe you can show, and I don't know if it's too early to get into questions, but Jason's asked about is there an easy way to move devices between? You said zones, but I assume you mean sites. So if you actually just go into the devices view of one of the sites there,
Sure.
there's two ways to do this. One is that just go to the devices there, Jim. I can actually just grab one of those and drag it, and I can just drag it onto the menu at the left. May not want to do that now. That'll just immediately enroll that in the different site.
Yeah.
Or if you just open that one up again, just open up one of those ones and click on it. You can see a little drop down there, just at the top of that Dante Director section. You can just choose a different site there. So yeah, very easy to move devices between sites. You don't need to unassign them and then re-enroll them again. So I guess that kind of is a little demo, but also answers the first question. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that we could probably head into now. While that we're in the demo, I've seen a lot of questions popping up. There's one in here that I can answer right away. It says, to confirm, you will still need to have controller running on the local LAN on each site. No, you do not need to have controller running locally. This is not this is kind of a replacement for having things running locally in that way. When you enroll devices in a site itself, you do need to be on premise with a computer with controller, and then you enroll everything into Dante Director. And once everything is enrolled, you can manage all of those devices remotely.
Yeah, so the connections directly between the devices and Dante Director. Yeah, Dante Controller is not required on an ongoing basis.
Someone says, I like that you're using Reaper. Thanks. Let's see. Can
Eagle-eyed.
here's a question. Can you route a single source to multiple sites?
No, not at the moment. So a site in Dante Director, you can think of that as representing a kind of, a self-contained part of the installation, or it could be a completely separate physical installation. I think, in Audinate, we have a site for Sydney and a site for Cambridge, for example. In Dante Domain Manager, it is possible to route media between domains, and domains in Dante Domain Manager are kind of like pretty much analogous to sites in Dante Director. In the future, and when we look at kind of expanding different tiers of Dante Director, we may look at a similar functionality where you're able to route media across those sites. And once again, whether that's multicast or unicast. But at the moment, just think of a site in Director as being kind of like one self-contained part of the installation.
Here's another question I think is a good one. I think we have answered this already, but it says, do you link devices up to Director like in Dante Domain Manager when you first set them up? And the answer to that is yes. You do need to enroll all of the devices. We use the term enrolling. Enroll your devices in Dante Domain Manager, and once they're enrolled, then you can manage them and move them like we showed you earlier with the dragging things around and so forth. So yes.
Yeah, the only difference, look, there's a few different ways you can enroll devices in Dante Domain Manager. In Dante Director, there's only one. That is that you need to use Dante Controller and you use the add devices to DDM or Director. So you obviously can't use MDNS Discovery because Dante Director is not in your LAN, it's in the cloud. And we don't yet support DNS Discovery or Enroll by IP either. So yeah, just one method, but it's pretty straightforward to get devices into Dante Director.
We did have a question about Dante Director pricing. Pricing is pretty straightforward. We start at $20 a month, and you can have up to 20 devices for that $20 a month. And then as your system grows, and we have systems of all sizes in Dante Director right now, it's typically designed to work for 20 to 100 devices. That's kind of our sweet spot with Dante Director at the moment. And it's $20 a month, and it'll grow as your system grows.
Yeah, just to reiterate, there's not actually a limit of 100. It's just that when you look at like the way that information is presented, that kind of stuff, it's not really kind of like geared towards those really large scale installations, but it is capable of more than 100 devices per account.
Yeah,
Uh,
theoretically there's no limit, but
yeah,
the just
theoretically.
management wise with the way that things are currently set up, we believe that this is the sweet spot where we'll find things. So there was a question, let's see. Um, is Dante Director standalone or in combination with DDM? Okay, so there's a little bit of confusion there. So Dante Domain Manager and Dante Director are separate applications. Dante Director is a SaaS-based application that runs by itself in conjunction with Dante Controller to manage your site itself. Dante Domain Manager is a separate application that is typically used for on-premise installations. So if you have a large corporate building, for example, that is air gapped, like, say, for example, you work at the Pentagon and there's no way your internet access is ever going to be getting out to the internet, anything in there. So you would want to buy Dante Domain Manager, put it inside the Pentagon, and then you can run all of your AV networks there. So that is something that is a little bit different. So Dante Director and Dante Domain Manager are separate products, and one or the other is not required to run.
Yeah, you can think of them as being really alternatives to each other. They're just two different ways to get managed Dante into your network. Um, a Dante device can only ever connect to one manager at a time. So if it's in Director, it can't be in DDM and vice versa.
Yeah. Well, and that Christopher brings up a question. He says, if I'm already running DDM, is there any reason to switch to Director? How would you answer that one?
Look, certainly if you're looking for that remote management capability, we've had customers who are saying to us, look, we're running DDM and it's great, but we're closing all our data centers, so we'd like to look at it, as part of a SaaS transformation. What I will say is, if you are a DDM customer, we're planning to grow the Director product, and there's another question I've seen a little bit further down in the list there saying, what's happening with DDM. So we are committed to supporting an enterprise grade product going on. That is DDM at the moment. We will have an enterprise grade version of Director coming, and as a SaaS offering. We'll always have an on-prem thing, whether it's DDM or something that eventually converges with Director. So now, if you're a DDM customer, then sure, have a look at Director. If you think that it suits your needs, then that's great. But also watch this space. And when we have our kind of enterprise grade thing, then we'll be offering kind of like hopefully fairly seamless ways to transition between DDM and Director, both sort of financially and also from a sort of mechanics of transitioning. Definitely see a trend towards people wanting to have SaaS services rather than running their own server applications.
Yeah, and the comparison question, I think I'd put up this slide here so you can see some of the feature comparisons between Dante Director and Dante Domain Manager. Obviously, moving to a SaaS service has all of the benefits of a SaaS service. Not having to maintain your own hardware, manage your own hardware, ever upgrade the software itself. The software will automatically be upgrades. We typically do deployments fairly regularly, multiple times per month, making feature improvements, and things are changing all the time. Right now we are in very active and rapid development of Dante Director, and we're putting a lot of effort into it. So if you're a current subscriber, you may see more and more things just appearing in your Dante Director all the time. So that's a great place to be. Gotta love that. There's a question about what cloud regions does Dante Director run in? Currently, we are AWS West, but we've been monitoring the usage around the world. We have found very good reliability all over the world. There are some areas where it may not be optimal. We did some testing in China, and the Great Firewall has struck again, and does not make Director play that great right now in China. But in a lot of places of the world, it works just fine. Lawrence, what has been your experience running it with devices in Australia?
Yeah, no problem at all. And actually, just to sort of like hit one of the other questions here, it says, does the audio pass through port 8000? And the answer is no. No, all of the audio, video, and PTP clocking is passed around the local network, not through the cloud. It's one of the, and just to clarify, the fact you can enroll devices from anywhere in one Director account, it doesn't mean they can send audio to each other. They still have to be on the local network to send audio or video to each other. So yeah, so there's not like an audio video latency problem. It's just the controller monitoring data. It's not quite so critical on timing. So we don't see any kind of negative performance impacts of routing control data, say from Australia all the way up to the US. Obviously, over time, as the product grows and it gets, like in each region, then we have a plan to expand to different regions. One of the benefits of partnering with AWS is that they're everywhere. So we have that in front of us.
Um, I see Stuart asks a question about, is there any possibility of a purchase option rather than a subscription? Um, right now we are a monthly subscription. So it's really easy to do on FastSpring, is the service that we use to maintain that subscription. So it's just a credit card. Lawrence, do you want to maybe give some hints about potential?
Yeah, if by purchase you mean kind of like you own it, then that's sort of not really compatible with the concept of Dante Director because it is a service that we run, and it does have, it has ongoing costs associated with it, so it is something we have to charge for on an ongoing basis. We do recognise, however, that not everyone can buy on a credit card. We are looking into in the sort of short to medium term potentially invoicing options. So that'd be like a kind of annual upfront type of deal. And in the sort of slightly longer term, we're looking at how do we work with resellers and offer, say, 1, 3, 5 year upfront terms. So you should see at least annual and perhaps kind of upfront terms in the future. Right now, we started off pretty simple. The benefit of the kind of monthly credit card thing is that you can just be up and running in a matter of minutes. It's very self-serve. It's easy for us to transact with you. And once you start bringing quoting and invoicing, it slows the process down a little bit. But we are looking at that as well.
There was a question about whether a recording of this will be available. Yes, we will be putting this up on YouTube and then sharing it later. So you will be able to watch this again or share this with colleagues if you'd like. um, here's an interesting question. Approximately how much bandwidth is used for monitoring from the cloud? Kilobytes, megabytes?
I had a figure on this. It was something in the more kind of like kilobyte region. I'm sorry, I don't have the exact figure. It's not a significant amount of data. So if you're thinking about it from a kind of like corporate internet usage type of perspective.
Yeah, and you don't need anything really fat like AWS Direct Connect to be able to utilize this at all. So
No, standard internet connections just fine. Yeah.
standard internet works just fine. Lawrence mentioned earlier that you can manage things using a telephone if you need to. Anything with a web browser you can utilize. Now, one thing to note is that if you want to use a controller, you will need an application that is compatible with Dante controller. So you can't run controller on a phone typically, unless you have a Windows phone. Do they make those anymore? I don't
I
know.
don't know about that. I wouldn't be going there. But, yeah, no,
So
look,
yeah,
Data Controller is very much a desktop application. Yeah, Windows or Mac. You can run Director itself, and as I say, you can do like basic troubleshooting and even nice little bit of routing on Director itself, and that works pretty nicely on a phone. But obviously, yeah, once you start launching Dante Controller, you've got to be on a desktop or laptop type environment.
here's a question about Dante Director and BitFocus Companion. It says, do you need Director to use Companion? Do you want to go into this?
Yeah, the actual API is, and if we think back to that very first diagram we showed, is that if you have an API, you need something to be able to host that API and receive the commands and then distribute them out to the devices, and that's one of the things that Dante Director does. The API is actually, it's available in Dante Domain Manager as well, but because of the way that the topology of Dante works is that without a manager being in there, really it's the devices are all on their own. Like Dante Controller is not really designed to be something that can sit there and wait for commands to arrive. It's a desktop application that you run when you need it. So yeah, look, at the moment, API available through Director is the easiest way to get it, or through Dante Domain Manager if you're going down that path. And then all of the other integrations sit off the back of that API.
At this point, I do want to invite everyone to take a Dante Director for a test drive. If you want to go over to the director page, getdante.com/director, then we'll be able to, set you up with a director account. They're free for 30 days. So you can play with it and decide if it's right for you or not. So you click that, scan that QR code or go directly to the site to check it out. Um,
Yeah,
the
so full disclosure, you do need a credit card to sign up. Once again, there is no charge for the first 30 days. You're able to cancel that without actually incurring any cost. The reason for this is that we found that, if you get it set up in the first place, then if you start to get some configuration happening in Dante Director and you want to continue, then it just really seamlessly transitions across into that ongoing subscription. And through the beta period, we've had instances where people haven't been able to set up the payment in time, and then things get a little messy because the subscription gets cancelled, etc. So look, it is a bit of a constraint, but once again, we're just trying to make this kind of like a really low cost product. It's a low cost of sale. It's very self service, and the easiest way to do that is just get the payment up front, and then just kind of like carry on if you like. Otherwise, just cancel it. Very easy to cancel. You can go into manage subscription inside Director itself, and it takes you straight through to the FastSpring portal. You have full control over your credit card in there. So,
yeah, there's a question that Chris has about where payment is handled. It says, do you enter a credit card in the main GUI or for auto draft, or is payment billing handled outside of Director? I think I mentioned it earlier. We use a service called FastSpring. They are an external service, but you can launch it from the Director page to say manage my account, and then it'll take you over to it. And it's a authentication process on your local machine, and it'll send you an email that says, hey.
yeah, you actually don't even need that anymore. You can just launch,
Oh, you don't?
launch the FastSpring portal directly, as if you're the owner of the account. So yeah, look, FastSpring is great. It gives you the power to manage all of your own payment details. So you're dealing kind of with them, and they manage all of the kind of tax and currency conversions, that kind of stuff. So it's available in most countries in the world that way.
Yeah. Oh, and did we answer this one already? Do you need Dante Director to use a BitFocus Companion? I believe
Yep, we answered that one. Yes, you do. Yep, the API is in Director itself. Yep.
Will we get access to the slides? We weren't planning on sending the slides out, but we are sending a video, and you'll get a follow-up email that has a link to the video.
Okay.
Here's a question. Can you use SaaS on a project basis, say a couple of months?
Sure, you can sign up for the first 30 days, and you can renew for 1 month and then cancel. That's fine. Yeah, it's on a month-by-month basis. So
yeah. Here's a question. What hardware is required? None.
No hardware. Yeah, that's the beauty of the cloud service. That literally there's nothing on-prem that you require. Your Dante devices connect directly to the service. Yeah. There's a question here, can a device be enrolled into multiple accounts? The answer is no. It's a exclusive relationship. We are thinking, down the track, we might be able to create bridges between different accounts where, like where there's collaborations going on and that kind of stuff. So, but we're not quite there yet. But at the moment, just think of it as being one device, one manager, or one device is in one site in one account at a time. Users, however, can have as many accounts as they're invited to, whether they're your own organization or someone else you're working with, support people. Anyone can be given access to that account.
Here we have someone who actually visited us at InfoComm this year. It said at InfoComm show this year, Audinate was demonstrating simple control for a Dante PoE amplifier. This was a demonstration concept, but I'm wondering if this control via Dante Director will be developed further. Do you want to give us some details?
We hope so. So just for those who weren't at InfoComm, this was a new kind of section on our booth, which was called From the Labs. And so it is kind of very early preview type of stuff, but it's pretty cool. So the demo was, we have a couple of amplifiers from some OEM partners we're working with, and we're able to control the gain on the amplifier channels and also monitor the status of the outputs and the temperature of the amplifier. We're pretty excited about this concept for the future, but it's going to take a fair bit of work between us and all of our OEM partners to make that into a real thing. We're definitely hoping that's going to be something that you'll see in the next kind of like year or two.
Here's a question. It says, does the SaaS model feature a backdoor for Audinate to the system? Is this secure? So I'm not exactly sure what that's referring to. One of the things that you can do if if you need support for Dante Director, you can add the support team or one of the support members from Audinate so they can get into your account to do some work. So if you're calling up the support line, you can do that. Do you
Yeah,
want
that's
to?
totally up to you though. Yeah, so you have full control over who has access to your account. Now, look, the core product development team who runs this product, that's like they are the only ones who have access to any of the data in the system. So, and I just have finished filling in a security questionnaire, and there's plenty of questions about this stuff. So we take it very seriously. And we've been through, various kind of third-party assessments of how we manage our security, for example. And yeah, we do everything we can to make sure that your data is kept private.
Um,
Someone's here asking about switchable routing via Crestron, and the answer is yes. We do have that Crestron connector that you can download for free, and that works with Dante Director or DDM through the API. And yeah, what that does is just allows you to create just routing changes similar to what Jim demonstrated with the Stream Deck.
yeah, and along the same lines, Christopher asks, does BitFocus Companion work with DDM? Yes, it
Yes, it
does.
does. Yeah,
It's like it does with Director.
it does. Someone's asked if we use DDM as Director included. Well, not at the moment. They are separate products. I think I mentioned before, down the track, we'll be looking to offer ways for DDM customers to transition to Director once we feel like it's an equivalent product. But look, certainly have a look at the free trial and do some evaluation. Even if you want to use Director for a slightly different use case to DDM, then it is still pretty cost effective. So, give it a go.
Here's another question about, is this webinar approved for Avixa RUs? The answer to that is no. This is not an Avixa RU supported service. But now one thing I will state is a lot of our training is supported with Avixa RUs, and that's free training. So please go over to our website and check out the various training options there. A lot of it is provided via the web, so you can get Dante level 1, 2, and 3 directly over the web, and often you can get it during 1 week, just 3 days worth of 4 hours every day. We also offer it in multiple different languages all around the world. So we have ones that are in Europe and ones that are down in Central and South America and so forth in various different languages. And a lot of those do offer RUs. I think our mastery class would provide you enough RUs to, and that's an on-site class, and that happens either in Europe or the US right now. I think we may also be running some in Australia as well. But those, I think, provide you enough RUs to cover 3 years or something like that. So consider that.
It's a question about AES 67, and I have to say that there's not full support for AES 67 in Director quite yet. Yeah, so just watch that space. And Felix asked about, did I get it right? You can't use Director to create mappings between sites. You have to use DDM to establish connections over router connections. So just to clarify here, so there's two slightly different concepts here. The sites in Dante Director, no, it's not currently possible to map or to route audio or video between those sites. They're just considered to be representative of separate parts of the install. You can, however, use Dante Director and the unicast clocking feature, which Jim showed very briefly, to route audio across subnets within one site. So if you have one site and you want to break your network down into different subnets, you can do that in Director, which you can't do in Unmanaged Dante.
Here's a question from Paul. Can AVIO adapters be enrolled in Dante Director?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And one more is from Brian. Do you have plans to deprecate DDM? As far as I know, no. right now they have very different use cases and customer bases. So if you are in need of working in an environment that you can't have access to the internet, and that's a definitive, then yeah, DDM is going to be the right solution for you. And we can go back and do a quick comparison again here of what DDM and Dante Director offers, but we're trying to provide multiple solutions so you can have something that actually fits with the environment that you're in. So if you have questions, please don't hesitate to shoot them to us. We're happy to answer them.
Yeah, totally supporting DDM. And I did mention we're talking about a kind of what we've dubbed Director Enterprise, which will be a SaaS alternative to DDM, but we'll always support DDM or a very close equivalent of something that you can run on-prem as well. So it may get a name change at some point in the future, but it will be supported or something very much closely equivalent to it. Yeah, if you're an existing DDM customer, then rest assured we'll continue to support that product.
Here's a question about this is probably about our last one. We are at our time. It says, can you route signals using Director and Dante Connect? So right now, yeah, go ahead.
Not quite yet, but yeah, we're thinking pretty strongly about that. So yeah, and I spent a bit of time talking to Will, who's the product manager for Dante Connect. We can certainly see some advantages in like getting up and running really quickly with Director. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. Not announced, nothing to announce yet, but we're thinking about that pretty strongly.
Yeah, and for those of you not familiar what Dante Connect is, Dante Connect is a a solution of products featuring Dante Domain Manager, Dante Virtual Sound Card, all devices that run in the cloud with cloud-based audio production workflows. So that is available on a per event basis if you need to utilize that. But those are typically for broadcast solutions. So if you'd like more information on that, please check out our website. Once again, I'd like to thank everybody for coming today. I appreciate your time. We know that it's valuable, and to come to learn about a product, we really appreciate you spending a few minutes with us, and hopefully we've answered a lot of your questions. Please go and check out Dante Director. Free 30-day trial. It's pretty easy and fast to get up and running. So check it out, and we will be building and introducing new features all the time. So stay tuned for more even.
Okay, thanks, Jim, and thanks to all the audience and a bunch of great questions as well. So enjoy the rest of your day.